Hi, I'm Nate Adams, often known as Nate the House Whisperer, and CEO of HVAC 2.0. So if you're here, you may be wondering who the heck I am. And that's a fair question. So the reason that I started this group was to pull apart the Gordian Knot of residential electrification and try and put people together so that they can work together to actually help fix this problem and scale the solutions to this problem. And it's really, really hard. And we have spent the better part of a decade now pulling this thing apart, and we're basically there solving it. So this group is unapologetically about HVAC 2.0. And you can be mad at me. You can say that's me being fully commercial. Whatever. If you don't like it, get out. Go make your own group. That's fine. But the solution that we have come up with is heavily involved with the HVAC industry because they are the ones that can actually fix this. 85% of residential HVAC replacements happen on an emergency basis. So if you aren't an HVAC contractor, you don't get the call. And every time a new HVAC system is put in that doesn't have a heat pump in it, that opportunity is lost for 15 or 20 years. So we're talking 2035, 2040. I mean, there's targets that would like to be done with decarbonization by then. Ain't gonna happen. The sooner we can get to 100% replacement with heat pumps, the better. Very, very important. So I wanted to record a relatively quick video about the journey that we've been on to figure this one out, because it's hard. And at least people are paying attention. So my friend Panama, Building Decarb Coalition, was kind enough to call me the father of Electrify everything. Hopefully we can live up to this in 2.0, because I may be the face, but which is a little scary. But even if I'm the face, there's a lot of help behind me. And through all of what we've been doing, we've been trying to hold to Teddy Roosevelt's maxim of complaining about a problem without proposing a solution is called whining. So we have tried not to whine. Maybe we've whined initially, but then we have figured out a solution path for whatever that is that we think is actually viable. So in the next video, I'm going to do a longer video on this so you can see all the things that happened. But here's a whole bunch of the story. So I used to have an insulation company and it failed. I shut it down on purpose because I was miserable. Out of that, the efficiency program design was a decent chunk of why it died. And so we proposed what we call the one knob efficiency program. So that's the first piece of not whining. Then we developed a market-based sales process for selling substantial retrofits. So we call them comprehensive. They're not deep because that's usually a really, really big deal. This is effective. This is enough to get a house down to where you can run it on a heat pump, basically. And totally market-based in a low housing cost market. These projects were 10 to 20% of the value of most of the homes that we worked on. Some were a little more. But we pulled 10 gas meters off in one of the cheaper gas areas of the country. And then we also did a propane, oil, and corn furnace. And again, completely outside of programs. So if we can do this, this can work basically anywhere. And that's what we wanted to figure out. And we did. Then I had a major issue with building science, which is the physics of how a house works. Everything felt like 301, 401, 501 material, and there was nothing to get up to speed on, all right, if I'm smart but I don't know anything, how do I learn about this? And so much of electrification is based on building science, because if you don't get the load of a house down to something halfway reasonable, the electricity cost could crush you in the wintertime. I've seen $1,000 and $1,500 electric bills in the middle of winter for a poorly designed and commissioned heat pump system. So we want to avoid that. That will tick people off. It'll be like the 1980s diesels all over again. So I wrote the book called The Home Comfort Book. And that has been really helpful for both homeowners and HVAC contractors. Then we talked a lot about and realized that resale value is a severe problem. You can't do a $30,000 upgrade on a house and then get nothing if you sold it the next day. That will work for a small percentage of the market. But if we destroy net worth and we set people's retirements back, that's a problem that we really need to solve. So wrote about that and actually created a calculator for helping show what it is. Then we wanted to figure out how do we inject building science into HVAC, because the HVAC industry historically cares mostly about what they call the box, what we call the box. So in the basement or the attic, that's the indoor unit. It's typically the fan and the coil or the furnace. So we needed to figure out how to do that. But we needed to do it in a way that didn't burn their companies down, because typically building science turns companies into dumpster fires. Then the Electrify Everything movement, started this group, which is really important. So we need to figure out how do we cross the chasm and scale into the mass market. We really wanted to figure out how do we create an invasive business model in the HVAC industry. I now live in West Virginia, and kudzu is a real problem here, where it just takes over a mountainside. We'd like it to be beneficial invasive species, because if we don't create a business model so far superior to what is already out there, nobody's going to shift. So it needs to be so good that if you don't use it, you are at risk of going out of business. And that is not an easy thing to do in a really well-defined and established industry. So that's what we've been working on figuring out. I put out, along with CLASP and professor from Harvard, now Brown, a policy proposal on moving everything to being heat pumps. It doesn't exclude furnaces. It's actually called hybrid heat. But that's a piece of proposing solutions, not just whining. And then the big piece that we're working on now is scaling up heat pump installs and shell retrofits. And that's something that we could use some help with, which I'll get to later. So we need help finding contractors that are open to this. We can find a bunch, but the faster we can find them, the better. Now, wicked problem, just want to define this really quickly. It is a problem that is so complicated and multifaceted that you don't know that you solved it until you do. And it takes forever to do it. There's nothing obvious about them. So every problem is unique. There's no clear problem definition. It's multi-causal, multi-scalar, and interconnected. So it's a mess together. Everything's interconnected. There's no clear problem definition, again, just in case. Multiple stakeholders with conflicting agendas. These problems tend to straddle organizational and disciplinary boundaries, which is totally true here. So we're playing with policy, we're playing with homeowners, we're playing with HVAC contractors, we're playing with HVAC OEMs. There's a lot going on. Every solution ramifies throughout the system, so you change one thing and it has cascading influence throughout the system. Solutions are not right or wrong, but better or worse. It can take a long time to evaluate solutions. I agree. This is now 8 or 9 years we've been playing with this, and we think we finally have it. Problems are never completely solved. Totally true in electrification. Houses are screwed up, so are people. You can make them better, but you can't completely solve things. And another way to look at this is the Gordian Knot, which is an Alexander the Great legend, where it's this huge knot that nobody could figure out what to do, and if you can come at it with a very different approach, you can make all the perceived constraints moot and solve the problem. And here's just a couple little pieces of what's going on. So the Gordian Knot here, this just came out as the day I'm recording this video, or actually the week of. It is a rather tongue-in-cheek column about let's ban gas furnaces. And this guy's being serious. Unless we start pushing back in our local communities, we will wake up and find our only option is to own an all-electric home heated by wind and solar. Yeah, that's very much what I want. Feels like the memes of a little while ago. This is the future that the liberals want. It's not that I want to get into politics, but I lean a little bit right myself, so I am oftentimes out of step with both sides of what's going on here. But this is a pretty common way of thinking in the HVAC industry. And Is the industry going to move with that kind of thinking? Are they going to sell heat pumps happily? No, it's a real problem. And then this was written by my friend Justin Guay, actually a client as well at this point. He wrote this about electrifying his house in the Bay Area several years ago, and it was a nightmare. This is a climate tailor-made for heat pumps. I mean, San Francisco is between 40 and 80 almost all the time. I mean, can you pick a better climate for heat pumps? It's what they like. They do really well. But he struggled and struggled and struggled and had to just dig in, and in some ways got a not perfectly optimized solution, but he got it done. And then oddly enough, we helped him with his new place, which is in Utah. So this is a real problem for homeowners, and lots of people in this group are finding this. They're going out looking for contractors, and nobody wants to do it. So here's the Gordian Knot. These are just some of the pieces. This isn't all. So we have contractor fears. They're afraid of callbacks and things not working and all kinds of problems. Consumer fears, again, is it going to work? Manufacturer fears, is their stuff going to hold up? Are they going to get a whole lot more warranty calls? Lack of education is pervasive everywhere. Efficiency programs are very often in the way. Lots of programs still lean towards gas, or you can do a heat pump only system but not a hybrid. So there's lots of things where it's screwed up. So if you do a system that's ideal, you don't get rebates from anybody. So that's not that great. It's almost always the more expensive path to electrify right now. It just is. You're going to run better equipment and more expensive equipment. Just is. It's a much harder sale for HVAC companies to make. Again, high risk of callbacks. Callbacks are pretty much the profit killer in the HVAC industry. So there needs to be a lot of focus on not causing a lot of those. And then most importantly, there's no business model for any of this. So without a business model, and again, one that's preferably invasive, good enough to take over, we have a problem. So our hope is that HVAC 2.0 is the solution to this Gordian knot. Now, it may render the perceived constraints of the problem moot to a degree, but it doesn't mean that it's easy to pull off. Not at all. You're going to see me in here talking about this. It's going to be blatant, and there will be more content for you to consume. Go take the Electrify Everything course. It's really critical. In fact, I'm moving to where if you haven't taken it, I'm going to mute you for a month in the group so that you can go through the course. It takes about a month to go through. And when you come out the other side, then you'll be much more constructive in the discussion. So hopefully that helps out a little bit, but there's been a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of effort, and this has all been unpaid pretty much. So, I mean, I've gotten paid for doing some of these projects, but it hasn't been paid super well, and all of this work has been unpaid. So if you want to help with this, the best thing you can do is help us find contractors by calling supply houses and asking for contractors that already install air source heat pumps so that you know who's actually friendly. And if you use a form that we've developed, we'll get to see what those are, and we can begin a map of people that are friendly. And then hopefully, if you all go ping them a couple of times, if a contractor gets a call from 3 or 4 different people asking about heat pumps and HVAC 2.0, we're going to be like, what's going on? And that's good, because the process to changing over, onboarding takes a long time for 2.0 for contractors. It takes 4 to 8 months is what we're finding consistently, because it's such a thorough mindset shift. It's not unlike changing religions or political parties. It's not a small thing to ask. So we can't just ask people to do it. They have to want to do it. So hopefully this is helpful, and yes, there's going to be times when you're going to be frustrated with me because I'm just going to shut stuff down. I'm not going to apologize for it. We have a really good idea of what the path looks like for this. And if you're coming off the path, I'm going to mute you. So sorry, but not sorry. Do you want this to happen as quickly as possible, or do you want to have arguments over stupid crap that we already know the conclusions to? If it's the second, please leave now. So this is going to be a little tighter group moving forward. So anyway, I'm Nate Adams, and I will record a longer version of this so that you can see what the full journey looked like, because it's been a hell of a ride. And thanks for watching. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.